No one expected the quiet one to be dangerous. Yet when the cafeteria fell silent that afternoon, everyone at Black Ridge Federal Penitentiary realized they were about to witness something they would never forget. The air in the dining hall was thick with the smell of cheap food and tension. Metal trays clattered, voices murmured, and guards leaned against the walls pretending not to notice the unwritten law being enforced at the center of the room. Every inmate knew what it meant when Derek "Bulldog" Harlan stood up. It meant trouble. Big trouble. Bulldog was the kind of man who ruled through fear, a mountain of muscle covered in ink and scars, his reputation carved into every corner of the prison. No one crossed him, not even the guards. His word was law. His territory was the cafeteria. And when he saw a newcomer sitting there, alone, eating in silence without permission, he took it as a challenge. The new inmate, Kai Jin, didn't look like he belonged in a place like this. Lean, calm, and composed, he sat with his tray untouched, as if the noise around him didn't exist. No tattoos, no gang colors, no fear. Just silence, a kind of silence that unsettled everyone. He wasn't trying to prove anything, and that was exactly what made Bulldog furious. "Hey, rookie," Bulldog barked, his voice cutting through the hall like a blade. "You lost, or just stupid?" No response. The huge man slammed his tray down on Kai's table. Food spilled, forks clanged, and conversations died. All eyes turned. The hall froze. Bulldog leaned in close, his shadow swallowing Kai's calm face. "You don't eat here unless I say you can." Still, nothing. Kai just stared at the food in front of him, his hand quietly resting beside the tray, fingers tightening slightly, almost imperceptibly. Bulldog smirked, mistaking silence for weakness. He grabbed Kai by the collar and yanked him up so fast that the bench screeched against the concrete. "You hear me, boy?" His arm bulged with veins, the dragon tattoo twisting over his skin as if alive. "You look at me when I talk to you." Only then did Kai raise his eyes. No anger, no fear, just calm. So calm that it was unnerving. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the guards stopped pretending not to watch. Bulldog's grin faltered for a moment, but pride pushed him forward. He tightened his grip. "Say something. Go on. Let's hear what the quiet man's got." Kai's voice came out low, steady, and almost gentle. "Let go." That was all. 2 words. Not loud, not threatening, but they carried a weight that made the hairs on the back of Bulldog's neck stand up. The inmates watching exchanged glances. Something about that tone didn't fit. It wasn't fear. It was control. Bulldog laughed. Or what? He shoved Kai back down onto the bench, the metal legs screeching against the floor. A few inmates flinched. Others whispered bets under their breath. But Kai didn't move. Didn't fight back. Didn't even blink. He just straightened his collar slowly and went back to eating. That was it. The final insult. Bulldog slammed his hand onto the table again, shaking the plates. He grabbed Kai once more, lifting him halfway off his seat. But before anyone could react, Kai's hand moved, fast, precise, and deliberate. He didn't punch, he didn't lash out. He simply twisted Bulldog's wrist, not brutally but with surgical precision. A sharp crack of pressure, a controlled movement. Bulldog froze. His body tensed. His breath caught. Pain flashed across his face. Kai let go just as calmly as he had moved, his hand returning to his lap. The giant took a step back, eyes wide, clutching his arm in disbelief. The cafeteria went dead silent. Kai looked at him once more and said quietly, "I told you. Let go." For a long second, Bulldog didn't know what to do. His mind screamed to retaliate, but something deep inside him, something instinctive, told him not to. That silence again. That terrifying, commanding silence that didn't need volume to dominate the room. He backed away slowly, muttering under his breath, his pride burning hotter than the pain. His crew followed him, unsure whether to look at him or the man who had just humiliated him without throwing a single punch. When Bulldog finally left the cafeteria, the noise didn't return. No one moved. No one spoke. The guards exchanged glances, realizing they'd just seen the balance of power inside Black Ridge shift before their eyes. Kai went back to his meal, completely unfazed. Each movement was calm, deliberate, almost sacred. as if nothing had happened at all. And that was the moment everyone in Black Ridge knew. This wasn't just another inmate. The king had awakened. For the next few days, the entire prison seemed to orbit around one name, Kai Jin. Whispers spread through every cell block like wildfire. The quiet one made Bulldog back down. He didn't even hit him. The guy just looked at him, and Bulldog froze. Rumors in prison grow fast, but this one grew like a legend. Men who had spent years surviving by fear suddenly started to wonder if the real power inside Black Ridge didn't belong to the loudest, but to the calmest. Still, no one really knew who Kai was. His file had arrived sealed, his record blacked out. Even the guards couldn't access it fully. Some said he was a former soldier, others claimed he'd been part of an elite unit overseas. A few swore he was some kind of martial artist who'd taken down entire gangs before vanishing into anonymity. The truth was buried, and that mystery only made him more dangerous. Kai's daily routine never changed. He woke early, meditated before dawn, then worked in the prison workshop with quiet discipline. He spoke little, moved with precision, and never wasted energy. Every gesture had purpose, like a man who had already fought all his battles long before arriving here. Meanwhile, Bulldog's pride festered like a wound. His dominance had cracked, and everyone could see it. In a place where respect was the only currency, he was suddenly broke. His crew, men who used to follow him without question, now whispered behind his back. He hated Kai not because the newcomer had hurt him, but because he had exposed him. The guards noticed the shift too. Lieutenant Carter, a veteran officer who'd worked 20 years in Black Ridge, had seen plenty of fights, but never something like that. "There's control in that one," he told his partner one night. "The kind of control you don't learn in the streets. You earn it through pain." Carter began keeping an eye on Kai, watching the way he moved, the way other inmates cleared paths for him even though he never asked them to. There was something unsettlingly composed about him, like a storm held tightly behind calm eyes. Inmates started testing him in small ways. A shove in the hallway, a stolen tray, a muttered insult. But every time, Kai diffused it with quiet precision. Sometimes he'd simply walk away. Other times, a single look was enough to end the confrontation before it began. To outsiders, it might have looked like luck, but to those inside the walls, it was power. A silent, controlled kind of power that didn't need to roar to be heard. Bulldog couldn't stand it anymore. Every day he replayed that moment in the cafeteria, trying to understand how he had lost control. He told himself it was a fluke, a trick, but deep down, he knew it wasn't. There was something about Kai, something that didn't fit the logic of the prison. Late one evening, while the inmates were returning from yard time, Bulldog watched Kai through the bars. The man was cleaning the floor in the workshop, moving slowly, methodically. Every motion seemed precise, deliberate, almost meditative. "That guy ain't normal," Bulldog muttered. "No one who scares you ever is," one of his men replied nervously. Bulldog glared at him, and the man looked away. But the truth had already been spoken. Kai was changing the rules of survival inside Black Ridge. He didn't fight for dominance, didn't seek followers, didn't play the prison's game. Yet somehow the game started to revolve around him. For the first time in years, violence wasn't what defined strength. Calm did. And that terrified everyone. As the days turned into weeks, even the guards began treating Kai differently. Orders to search him were accidentally skipped. Disciplinary reports disappeared. Some said the warden himself had told them to leave the new guy alone. Others whispered that Kai had connections far beyond the walls of Black Ridge, connections that even the system respected. But Kai wasn't thinking about power. He was thinking about survival. Not his own, but something larger, something unfinished. Each night, as the lights dimmed and the prison fell into silence, he sat on the edge of his bunk, eyes closed, whispering a name no one else could hear. It wasn't anger driving him. It was purpose. And though no one knew it yet, that purpose would soon shake Black Ridge to its core. Days passed, but the silence between Kai and Bulldog grew louder than any fight could have. It hung over the prison like an invisible storm waiting to break. Every man inside Black Ridge could feel it. That quiet tension, the kind that made even the guards double-check the locks before walking away. Bulldog's pride was bleeding, and everyone knew it. The cafeteria incident had spread across the blocks like gospel. Every time he walked through the yard, whispers followed him. The king had fallen, and a new name was being carved into the concrete walls. Kai Jin. But Kai never claimed the throne. He didn't talk to anyone, didn't build alliances, didn't seek power. That's what made him even more dangerous. In a world where men fought to be seen, the one who could disappear while sitting in plain sight was the most unpredictable of all. One cold morning, as the inmates lined up for roll call, Bulldog made his move. He had been planning it for days. Not a public brawl this time, but a message, a warning. He needed to remind everyone who he was. While Kai was working in the laundry room, 3 of Bulldog's men approached from behind. No words, no taunts, just a quiet order to make it look like an accident. The hum of washing machines drowned out the sound of footsteps. A mop bucket rolled across the floor. The first man grabbed Kai's shoulder. And then, silence. No one saw exactly what happened next. The guards rushed in after a sudden crash. 2 men down, groaning on the floor. The third pinned against the wall, gasping for air. Kai stood there calm as ever, a streak of water running down his arm. "Self-defense," said one of the guards after reviewing the cameras later. He didn't even strike first. But Bulldog didn't care about cameras or rules. To him, it was war now. That night, the prison hummed with rumors. Some said Kai had training that normal men couldn't understand. Others swore they saw him move faster than human reflex should allow. A few whispered that Bulldog had finally picked a fight with someone who didn't belong in a prison. Someone who had been put there for reasons no one was supposed to know. In his cell, Bulldog stared at the ceiling, the dragon tattoo on his arm twisting under the light. He couldn't shake that feeling. Not fear exactly, but something worse. He was losing control, and he knew it. The next day, during yard time, he walked straight up to Kai. The other inmates froze. The air was electric, the kind of tension that could ignite with a single wrong move. "You think you can embarrass me twice?" Bulldog said, voice low but shaking. "You think these men respect you?" Kai looked at him unblinking. "I think they're tired of being afraid." The words hit harder than any punch. Around them, heads turned. Some of Bulldog's own crew lowered their eyes. For a moment, Bulldog's breath caught. Then rage took over. He lunged. Kai sidestepped. One motion. Smooth, precise, like water flowing around stone. Bulldog's momentum carried him forward, and he stumbled, barely catching himself before hitting the ground. Gasps rippled through the yard. Guards shouted for order, but no one moved. Kai didn't strike back. He simply stood there, hands at his sides, calm as the morning breeze. "This isn't your kingdom anymore," he said softly. The words spread like wildfire. That line would echo through the prison for days. The next morning, something changed in the atmosphere of Blackridge. Inmates who used to walk with fear now lifted their heads. Men who had lived years in silence began to talk again. The rhythm of the prison was shifting, slowly, but undeniably. And deep down, even Bulldog understood what that meant. Power was slipping through his fingers. His reign wasn't just challenged, it was ending. But he wasn't finished yet. In the following days, he started gathering those still loyal to him, men who feared what Kai represented. "You think this place can survive without order?" Bulldog barked. Without fear? He was right about one thing. Order in Blackridge didn't come from rules. It came from control. And when control breaks, chaos fills the void. As the lights flickered that night, a storm raged outside the walls. Rain hammered the metal roof. In the darkness of his cell, Kai sat cross-legged on his bunk, his mind somewhere far away. He wasn't thinking about Bulldog or revenge. He was thinking about balance, the balance he had sworn to protect long before these walls closed around him. Because Blackridge wasn't just a prison. For Kai Jin, it was a battlefield disguised as punishment, and the war had only just begun. The storm outside didn't stop for 2 days. Thunder rolled over Blackridge Federal Penitentiary, echoing through its concrete corridors like a warning from above. Inside, the tension matched the weather. Heavy, unpredictable, ready to explode. Kai Jin kept to himself, working silently in the workshop, fixing old fans and broken radios that no one else bothered with. His calmness had become a mirror. It reflected the chaos around him. Men who once ruled through fear now questioned their place. And in a place built on survival, doubt was more dangerous than any weapon. Lieutenant Carter watched everything from the control room monitors. He saw how inmates unconsciously moved around Kai, giving him space without realizing it. He saw the subtle order Kai brought wherever he walked. The way fights stopped before they started. The way silence followed him. He's not just surviving, Carter muttered to himself. He's leading, without trying to. His younger partner, Officer Reyes, frowned. You saying he's manipulating them? Carter shook his head. No, he's teaching them. Down in cell block C, Bulldog was losing his grip. His influence had fractured. Half his men stayed loyal out of fear. The other half waited for someone stronger to follow. In prison, loyalty was currency, and Bulldog's was devaluing fast. That night, Bulldog called a meeting in the showers, neutral ground where guards rarely interfered. Steam filled the air. His men circled him, waiting for answers. We don't bow to ghosts, Bulldog growled. He's just a man. Flesh and blood, he bleeds like anyone else. One of his crew, a wiry inmate named Knox, spoke up. Then why didn't you make him bleed yet? The room fell silent. Bulldog's glare could have burned through concrete, but the question hit a nerve. He slammed Knox against the wall, whispering through clenched teeth. You questioning me now? Knox smirked. Everyone is. The punch came fast, brutal, but it didn't silence the truth. Across the prison in the dim light of his cell, Kai sat reading a small, torn Bible left by the previous inmate. The pages were worn, the ink fading, but one verse caught his eye. He who conquers himself is greater than he who takes a city. He closed the book slowly, hearing the distant echoes of chaos in Block C. He knew what was coming. Pride was afire, and Bulldog's was about to burn the whole place down. The next morning, Carter intercepted Kai during work duty. You've got people's attention, Jin, he said quietly, keeping his tone neutral. That's dangerous in here. Kai didn't look up. Attention isn't what I want. Carter studied him for a long moment. Then what do you want? Kai hesitated. Peace. Carter almost laughed. You picked the wrong address for that. But Kai just nodded, calm as ever. Sometimes peace needs to be earned through storms. Those words stuck with Carter for the rest of the day. Meanwhile, Bulldog was gathering allies in secret. A few corrupt guards, some inmates in debt, men desperate enough to listen. He promised them food, favors, protection. He whispered about taking back control, about reminding everyone that fear was the only law that ever worked inside Blackridge. But what Bulldog didn't understand was that something deeper had already changed. Kai hadn't broken the prison's order. He had shifted it. Inmates no longer feared Bulldog's fists, they feared their own reflection. They were beginning to believe that strength didn't have to roar, that maybe control, silence, and dignity could be a weapon too. Late that night, as rain poured against the barred windows, Carter found himself standing outside Kai's cell again. The man was meditating, unmoving, eyes closed. You know Bulldog's planning something, Carter said. I do, Kai replied without opening his eyes. Then why don't you act? Because sometimes, Kai said softly, a storm has to break before the air can clear. Carter didn't answer. He just watched him, realizing that Kai wasn't afraid of what was coming. He was waiting for it, as if every moment in this place was part of a design he already understood. In that instant, Carter saw the truth that no one else could. Blackridge wasn't changing because of violence. It was changing because of one man's restraint. And restraint, in a world of chaos, was the most dangerous power of all. By the third week, the silence inside Blackridge had become unbearable. It wasn't the calm of peace. It was the calm before something big, something inevitable. Everyone felt it. Even the guards walked with more caution, speaking in shorter sentences, glancing over their shoulders as if the air itself had turned against them. Kai Jin sensed it too. The rhythm of the prison had changed. He could hear it in the footsteps echoing through the halls, the whispers at mealtime, the nervous glances exchanged between men who once stood fearless. The storm was closing in, and he knew who was bringing it. That afternoon, the sirens blared without warning. An inmate fight in Block C. Carter and his team rushed in, breaking up chaos that spread like wildfire. Bulldog wasn't there, but his fingerprints were all over it. The riot wasn't random. It was a message. While guards were distracted, another plan was in motion. At the far end of the prison, Bulldog and 3 of his remaining loyalists cut through the power to the security cameras. For the first time in years, part of Black Ridge went dark. The lights flickered, and the corridors fell into shadows. That's when they went after Kai. He was in the workshop again, repairing a radio under the dull hum of a single flickering bulb. When the power cut, he didn't flinch. He just placed the screwdriver down and exhaled slowly. He had been expecting this. The sound of footsteps echoed from behind. Heavy, deliberate. Bulldog's voice followed, low and menacing. "You should have kept your head down, monk." Kai turned slightly, his calm eyes meeting Bulldog's silhouette in the half-light. "And you should have learned when to stop." Bulldog chuckled. "You think you run this place now? You think these people respect you? They're afraid of you, same as they were of me. You just hide it behind your little Zen act." Kai didn't respond. He simply took one step back, his hand brushing the edge of the workbench. The room was quiet, except for the dripping of a leaking pipe. Every drop sounded like a countdown. Then, the first move came. One of Bulldog's men charged, swinging a piece of pipe. Kai sidestepped, fluid as wind, grabbing the man's arm and redirecting his momentum, not with brute force, but with precision. The man crashed into a shelf, metal clattering everywhere. Another rushed in, but Kai ducked under his swing, sweeping his legs and sending him crashing into the table. Bulldog moved next, slower but heavier, like a bull charging through a storm. He grabbed Kai by the collar, slamming him against the wall. "You think you can break me?" he roared. Kai's eyes met his. Calm, steady, unblinking. "You were already broken." Bulldog's punch came fast. Kai deflected it, twisting his wrist in a motion that forced the giant to drop to one knee. He didn't strike back. He just guided Bulldog down, like a teacher correcting a student. And then it happened. Something subtle, almost invisible to the others. Bulldog froze, breathing hard, realizing the truth. Kai wasn't fighting him. He was controlling him. Effortlessly, silently, without hate. "Who are you?" Bulldog whispered. Kai released his arm and stepped back. "Someone who came here to disappear." The words hung in the air like smoke. At that moment, Carter and 2 guards burst into the room, weapons drawn. The lights flickered back on, revealing the scene. Bulldog on the ground, his men groaning, and Kai standing still, hands raised peacefully. "Stand down," Carter shouted, though his tone carried confusion more than command. Kai obeyed. He didn't resist as they cuffed him. He simply looked at Carter and said quietly, "If you want to stop what's coming, you need to listen." Carter hesitated. "What's coming?" Kai's eyes shifted toward the security cameras now buzzing back to life. "This place isn't what you think it is." It never was. Later that night, Carter reviewed Kai's sealed file, the one that had been blacked out. He broke the code, scrolling through classified pages, until one line froze him in place. Former special operative. Assigned to undercover surveillance within federal facilities. Mission compromised. Status unknown. Carter's eyes widened. Kai wasn't a criminal. He was planted there. But before he could process the rest, alarms blared again, a full-scale lockdown. Bulldog's crew had triggered another distraction, and now the entire prison was erupting. Smoke filled the halls, doors clanged, and chaos spread faster than fire. Amid the confusion, Kai sat in his cell, calm as ever. He could hear the shouting, the pounding of boots, the screams. But his mind was elsewhere, focused, deliberate. He whispered softly to himself, "The king doesn't seek the throne. He protects the balance." And as the red lights flashed through the smoke, one truth became clear. Black Ridge wasn't collapsing because of violence. It was collapsing because the wrong man had tried to claim the crown. The lockdown lasted through the night. Red lights pulsed across the concrete walls like a heartbeat, steady and merciless. Guards shouted orders, inmates pounded on their cell doors, and chaos echoed through every corridor. But in the middle of it all, Kai Jin sat motionless on his bunk, his breathing slow, his mind distant, as if the world outside no longer concerned him. Lieutenant Carter hadn't slept in over 20 hours. The classified report he'd uncovered still burned in his mind. Special operative. Mission compromised. It didn't make sense. How could a man like that end up inside Black Ridge surrounded by killers and thieves? Unless he was never meant to be a prisoner. When the morning shift came, Carter walked into Kai's cell block, ignoring the noise, the chaos, the endless paperwork waiting upstairs. Kai stood by the bars, calm as always, eyes steady on the hallway. "You read the file," Kai said quietly before Carter could speak. Carter froze. "You knew I would." Kai nodded. "Now you understand why I can't leave." "Not yet." "What were you sent here for?" Carter asked. Kai turned toward the window, where a thin ray of light broke through the grime. There was someone inside. Someone using this place as more than a prison. A system hidden within the system. Drugs, weapons, messages moved through the walls like veins. I was supposed to expose it. But the operation collapsed. They buried the truth. And me with it. Carter felt a chill crawl up his spine. "You're saying someone inside the bureau?" Kai cut him off. "I'm saying the corruption doesn't stop at these walls." Before Carter could respond, the intercom crackled to life. "Lieutenant Carter, report to Control Room 3. Now." He hesitated, eyes locked on Kai. "This isn't over." "It never is," Kai replied. In the control room, chaos unfolded on the monitors. Several guards were down in Block C. Bulldog's men had launched another assault, targeting anyone seen siding with Kai. Carter clenched his jaw. "He's not trying to win," he muttered. "He's trying to burn the whole place down." "Orders from the warden?" a guard asked. Carter looked at the camera feed of Kai's cell. Empty. The guard's voice cracked. "He's gone." Alarms blared again. Down in the maintenance tunnels, Kai moved silently, avoiding cameras, slipping through the dark like a shadow. He knew the layout. He'd studied every inch during his months here. But this time he wasn't running. He was heading straight for the heart of the chaos. Bulldog was in the yard, rallying what remained of his crew. The storm had passed outside, but inside, thunder still rumbled. "We end this now," Bulldog roared. "Him or us." The gates burst open. Kai stepped through the smoke, his eyes sharp, unshaken. The inmates parted instinctively. Bulldog's grin was wild, his pride bleeding through his fury. "You think you're some kind of hero, huh? You think you can fix this place?" Kai stopped a few feet away. "I'm not here to fix it. I'm here to stop it from spreading." The crowd shifted, confused. Bulldog frowned. "What the hell does that mean?" Kai's gaze was steady. "Black Ridge isn't a prison anymore. It's a breeding ground. For something worse. And you've been helping it without even knowing." Bulldog hesitated. "You're lying." "Then look around," Kai said, his voice echoing through the yard. "Look at what they made us become." For a moment, even Bulldog seemed uncertain. The men who once followed him now watched Kai with something that looked dangerously close to belief. Carter arrived with a squad of guards, weapons drawn. "Everyone stand down," he shouted. But deep down, he knew the real battle wasn't about control anymore. It was about truth, and the system that had tried to bury it. As Bulldog clenched his fists, ready to strike, Kai whispered one last line. "You can't fight a man who's already made peace with his ghosts." Then he stepped forward, calm, fearless, unbreakable. And in that moment, everyone in Black Ridge realized that the storm they'd feared wasn't the one outside. It was standing right in front of them. The riot died down by dawn. The smell of smoke lingered in the air, mixing with the sharp sting of disinfectant as the guards dragged broken furniture and shattered trays from the yard. The prison looked wounded, scarred, bruised, breathing heavy. And yet, somewhere in that chaos, something had shifted. For the first time since Kai Jin had entered Black Ridge, there was silence. Not from fear, but from reflection. The inmates had seen things they couldn't explain. They'd watched one man stand in the middle of destruction and refuse to fight with hate. They'd seen restraint turn stronger than violence. And slowly, the prison began to understand something that no rule book had ever taught them. Power wasn't about domination. It was about control. Of yourself, your choices, your demons. Kai was placed in solitary confinement that morning. Not as punishment, but as protection. Even the warden knew that if Bulldog's men tried again, the result could turn fatal. The small cell was cold, the walls damp, the air heavy. Yet for Kai, solitude wasn't a prison. It was a mirror. He sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, eyes closed, breathing in the stillness. For years he had lived in silence, running from the ghosts of his past missions, the things he'd seen, the orders he'd followed without question. But now, within these walls, the noise had finally stopped. He thought of Carter, a man still bound by rules, still trying to make sense of justice in a place that had forgotten it. He thought of Bulldog, a man lost to pride, who had mistaken fear for respect. And he thought of himself, once a weapon, now something else entirely. Days passed. Kai didn't speak, didn't ask for release. He simply existed in the moment, letting the silence rebuild what the world had broken. Then one night, as the guards made their rounds, Carter stopped outside his cell. He stood there for a while before saying quietly, "They're transferring Bulldog. He's done here. Whatever power he had, it's gone." Kai didn't open his eyes. Power never disappears. It just finds new hands. Carter leaned against the bars. "And what about you? You could leave, you know. I read the rest of your file. The agency buried you because you refused an order, because you protected civilians when you were told not to. They made you the villain in a story they couldn't control." Kai opened his eyes then, calm and clear. "Maybe it's better this way. In here I see the truth of people. Out there it's just cleaner lies." Carter studied him in silence, then sighed. "You changed this place, Jin. You made them remember what dignity looks like." Kai almost smiled. "No, they changed themselves. I just gave them a moment to see who they really were." The next morning, something unexpected happened. Inmates who had once walked with their heads down began cleaning the yard voluntarily. Fights stopped. Meals were shared without threats. Even the guards noticed. The noise of survival had been replaced with something new. Balance. Bulldog, chained and escorted toward the transfer van, glanced back one last time. Through the bars of his transport cage, he saw Kai standing in the distance, hands behind his back, surrounded by men who now looked at him with quiet respect. Not worship. Respect. For the first time in years, Bulldog lowered his eyes. Back inside, Carter watched from the control tower. "You know," he muttered to Reyes, "I've seen men try to run this place with fists and blood. He did it with silence." Reyes nodded. "So what happens now?" Carter looked at Kai, still standing in the yard as sunlight began to pierce the clouds. "Now," he said softly, "now we learn to listen." As the sun rose over Black Ridge, light cut through the gray, through the cracks in the walls, the barbed wire, the worn faces of men who had long forgotten what hope looked like. For the first time, that light didn't feel foreign. It felt earned. Kai closed his eyes and whispered to himself, "The balance is restored." And somewhere deep inside the prison silence, for the first time, he felt free. 2 weeks passed. On the surface, Black Ridge had returned to order, routines reinstated, lockdowns lifted, and cells back on schedule. But underneath that calm, something powerful was shifting. The prison no longer moved by fear. It moved by rhythm. A rhythm Kai Jin had quietly created. Inmates worked in silence but not out of submission. Guards enforced rules without shouting. For once there was structure, not control. Even the air felt lighter. But as peace settled inside the walls, forces outside began to stir. Lieutenant Carter was called into the warden's office early one morning. The blinds were closed, the air thick with the smell of old coffee and tension. Sitting across from the warden was a man in a dark gray suit, clean-cut, cold, efficient. Government. "Agent Rowe, Internal Security Division," the man said, flashing a badge that gleamed like a warning. "We're here regarding inmate 4276, Kai Jin." Carter's jaw tightened. "What about him?" Rowe smiled without warmth. "You've been harboring a federal asset under false incarceration. That file was never meant to be opened." The warden cleared his throat nervously. "I didn't authorize." "You didn't need to," Rowe interrupted. "Orders came from higher up. He's being extracted tonight." Carter frowned. "Extracted? He's not an experiment. He's a person." Rowe's expression didn't change. "He's classified property of the agency. Whatever peace you think he's brought here, It ends now. Carter stood in silence, the truth sinking in. The peace inside Blackridge hadn't gone unnoticed. And peace, in the eyes of bureaucracy, was dangerous when it didn't come from control. That night, Kai was taken from his cell without warning. No cuffs, no noise. Just 3 men in plain uniforms, moving like shadows. He didn't resist. He knew this moment was coming. When Carter arrived at the gate, the van was already waiting. Rain poured again as if the skies refused to let the story end quietly. Carter stepped in front of the agents. "Where are you taking him?" Roe's voice was calm. "You don't want that answer." "I'm not asking for permission," Carter said, fists tightening. Roe smirked. "You think this is about morality, Lieutenant? This man was designed for control, not peace. The system doesn't make saints. It makes weapons. And we're just taking ours back." Before Carter could speak again, Kai's voice cut through the rain. "Let him be." The 2 men turned. Kai stood near the van, soaked but composed, his expression calm, eyes focused. "I knew it wouldn't last," Kai said. "But that's the thing about balance. It doesn't depend on one man." Roe narrowed his eyes. "You think you've changed something here?" Kai's voice was soft, but every word carried weight. "Not something. Someone. Enough that when I'm gone, it won't fall apart." Behind them, inside the prison yard, lights began turning on, cell by cell, window by window. Inmates stood silently at their bars watching. Even from the distance, Carter could see it. The men Kai had touched, the ones who had learned from his quiet strength. He turned back to Roe. "If you take him, you'll destroy everything we've built here." Roe shrugged. Then maybe it wasn't strong enough. Kai took a step forward, rain dripping from his hands. "You can take me," he said, "but you can't erase what they've seen." For the first time, Roe hesitated, not out of fear, but uncertainty. Something in Kai's tone carried authority beyond rank or mission. As the van doors closed, Carter met Kai's eyes one last time. No words, just a nod, a silent promise. When the vehicle pulled away, Carter stood alone in the rain, surrounded by silence and the faint glow of the prison lights. He didn't know if Kai was being taken to freedom or buried deeper within the system, but he knew one thing for sure. Blackridge would never be the same. And somewhere down that dark road, inside that government van, Kai looked out through the small barred window at the storm beyond. He wasn't angry. He wasn't afraid. He whispered to himself, "The king doesn't rule the walls. He rules what they cannot contain." Outside, thunder rolled again. The storm hadn't ended. It was only changing direction. The van cut through the storm like a steel ghost, headlights slicing through sheets of rain. Inside, Kai sat between 2 agents, wrists bound, eyes steady on the blurred reflections outside. The city lights flickered in the distance. Civilization, but not freedom. Not for him. He had been in enough transports to know when a route didn't make sense. They weren't taking him to a courthouse or a government safe house. They were going somewhere off the grid, a place designed for silence. Across from him sat Agent Roe, his expression unreadable, his suit still crisp despite the rain. "You should have stayed quiet, Jin," he said. "You could have served your time and disappeared." Kai's voice was calm. "I was sent here to disappear." Roe smiled faintly. "You were sent here to observe, not to lead a revolution. You broke protocol. The agency doesn't forgive that." Kai leaned back, his cuffs glinting in the dim light. "You built a system to control chaos, but what you never understood is that chaos adapts. You can't contain it with fear. Not forever." Roe's smirk faded. "You think peace changes people? You think a few weeks of silence inside a prison matter to the world outside?" Kai looked out the window. "It matters to the ones who stop being afraid." Before Roe could reply, the van jolted violently. The driver cursed, losing control. Tires screeched against wet asphalt. Metal groaned, and the world spun into noise. The vehicle crashed against a guardrail, skidding before slamming to a stop under a collapsed overpass. For a few seconds, there was only rain and silence. Then, Kai opened his eyes. One agent was unconscious. The other groaned in pain. Roe struggled to breathe, pinned against the shattered door. Kai's cuffs hung loose, broken clean in half. He stood slowly, surveying the wreck. Rain poured through the broken roof, pooling on the floor. Ro coughed. "You planned this." Kai shook his head. "No, but fate did." He pulled Ro free, dragging him outside into the storm. They stumbled into the open road, sirens faint in the distance. Ro glared at him. "You think you can run? You're still one of us, property of the system." Kai stepped closer, his presence calm but unshakable. "No, I was never yours. I was sent to study how men lose their humanity. And I found out how they find it again." Ro reached for his gun, but Kai was faster. Not violent, just precise. He twisted the weapon from his grasp and tossed it into the mud. "This isn't about me," Kai said. "It's about what comes next." Ro laughed bitterly. "Next? You're one man against an empire." Kai's gaze was steady. "Then I'll be the storm that reminds the empire it can bleed." Behind them, red and blue lights pierced the darkness. Patrol cars approached fast. Ro, still gasping, tried to stand. "You'll vanish again, they'll erase you." Kai turned away, walking toward the shadows beyond the bridge. They can erase a name, not what it taught. The sirens grew louder, but Kai was already gone, disappearing into the mist like he had never existed. When the authorities arrived, they found only wreckage and confusion. No body, no footprints, just an empty pair of broken cuffs glinting under the rain. Days later, Lieutenant Carter received a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph, the prison yard of Black Ridge, taken from above. The inmates stood in formation, not by command, but by choice. Their postures were disciplined, their eyes lifted. At the bottom of the photo, a single line was written in neat handwriting. "You can't cage balance." Carter stared at it for a long time before tucking it into his jacket. He didn't report it. He didn't have to. He knew what it meant. Months passed. The government never found Kai. Rumors spread, sightings across states, whispers of a man who appeared in violent places only to leave peace behind. Some called him a myth. Others called him a ghost. But those who had met him, those who had lived through the silence of Black Ridge, knew the truth. Kai Jin wasn't gone. He was watching, waiting, because some kings don't rule kingdoms. They rule the darkness between them. Months passed, and the legend of the silent inmate grew beyond the walls of Black Ridge. Reporters tried to trace the truth, but every file about Kai Jin led to dead ends, sealed records, missing documents, unanswered questions. The agency denied his existence. The government erased his name. Yet his influence kept spreading like quiet fire. Inside the prison, change had taken root. Violence had dropped. Cooperation had risen. The men who once lived by chaos now practiced restraint, the same discipline they'd learned from the man who had shown them strength without cruelty. Lieutenant Carter became acting warden after the old one was retired for mishandling the facility. He walked the halls daily, no longer out of duty but out of belief. Whenever he passed the empty cell where Kai had once stayed, he'd pause for a second, half expecting to hear that calm voice again. But the silence that met him wasn't empty. It was peaceful. One afternoon, Carter visited the prison chapel. On the back wall, written in chalk, someone had scrawled a sentence that made him stop cold. "The king doesn't conquer. He restores." He smiled faintly. No one admitted to writing it, but he knew. Outside, beyond the barbed fences, life moved on, or at least pretended to. The system repaired its image, painted over the cracks, claimed the peace inside Black Ridge as its own success. But Carter knew the truth. It hadn't been the government, the guards, or the rules that changed the place. It had been one man who refused to fight hate with hate. And maybe that's why the system feared him. Because real strength doesn't obey control. It transcends it. Some nights Carter would walk through the courtyard under the moonlight and feel it. That quiet presence. As if Kai was still there. Unseen but everywhere. In the way men spoke with respect. In the way calm replaced fear. The world might forget his name, but the silence he left behind had a voice that would never fade. Somewhere far from the city, a small monastery overlooked the sea. A man with quiet eyes and steady hands tended to a cracked bell, repairing it piece by piece. When a young monk asked him why he worked in silence, the man simply said, "Because silence teaches what words cannot." The monk smiled. You've been here before, haven't you? The man looked at the horizon and whispered, I never left. The wind shifted, carrying a faint echo, one that once belonged to the walls of Blackridge, and for a brief moment, the sea seemed to bow to the king who walked unseen. If this story reached you, remember, power isn't about noise, dominance, or fear. It's about control, balance, and knowing when silence speaks louder than words. Tell me in the comments, the king never needed a crown. And if you want more stories like this, stories about hidden strength, redemption, and the quiet ones who change everything, subscribe now and join our community. Because in a world that glorifies chaos, sometimes the real warriors are the ones who simply stay calm and wait.